larger than our moon that is also moving here, there, and everywhere throughout the rings of Saturn and among the moons of Saturn. You know, there has to be intelligence aboard. But this is the one that really blew the NASA people on the Voyager program out of the water. This object, this is an object, guys, is 2,000 miles long. It's 400 miles in diameter. And it's an artificially constructed. Norman calls them an electromagnetic vehicle. He says they appear to be making the rings. This is one of the rings of Saturn. I think this is the B ring. Bergman says he thought they were probably making the rings. I said, Norman, do you ever consider the possibility they may be mining the rings? Because I think the rings are probably rich in nutrients, minerals probably. And an incredibly advanced civilization, I think, would work out some system of mining those rings for all the minerals that are up there and utilizing them. Because space is filled with wealth, energies of all kinds. They'd never have to dig another hole in the ground like we do down here. Space is filled with energy. This is 2,000 miles long, and here on this end there seems to be something like an exhaust or a flare of energy of some kind that is probably a result of engines of some type inside this thing. But whatever it's doing, it's there, and it's a recognition and a representation of an advanced intelligence. And that's one of the things they don't want you to know, that we are confronting and relating with an intelligence that's so far beyond our own. We're looking at and talking about what's known as a Type 2 civilization. Now, for your own interest, I suspect most of you suspect this, that you are all members of a 0-0 type civilization. Beyond us, hopefully in a century or two, we might become a Type 1. But this is a representation of a Type 2 civilization. And Michio Kaku, the famous Japanese-American physicist in New York, has put out this concept about types 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 of the kind of advanced cultures and civilizations we will probably meet out there. Well, in probably meet out there, we've already met them. They're here. They're in our midst. So, I think I brought about 15 or 20 of these pictures, but I simply had no time. I don't have the time to show them all. But I've shown a few here, and I think I've piqued your curiosity. And I think most of you are pretty bright people, and you know you've been conned. You know you've been lied to. You're not fools. And I think you know who you are and why you're here and where you're going. Next photograph, please. This is a photograph taken by our Mariner space vehicle that we launched back a number of years ago. This is a picture of a facility on the surface of Mars. Now, this facility is located on the equator, and it's on the surface. And those of us who've studied it, and we discuss it with each other, we call it the airport. And I said, this is the parking lot. This is the administration building here. This is the main terminal here. And I imagine it's a pretty busy facility, you know, ships coming and going. But it's not an airport, it's very likely a spaceport. And it's on the surface and it's on the equator of Mars. And if you're ever interested in launching a vehicle from a planet, you put it on the equator and you take advantage of the rotation of the planet to assist in the launching of your vehicle. So you can take the momentum of the movement of the planet and it helps you get the thing off the ground. So it's exactly on the equator, it's on the surface, and it's massive in size. So maybe that is the parking lot, I don't know. Maybe that's the admin building, but there's something going on Mars. And I've been going back and forth with Richard Hogan now for years, where Richard, who I know most of you are aware of, is convinced that Mars is covered with ruins. Well, it is. But it's not just ruins. There are things going on that planet. On the surface, under the surface, continuously. Next picture, please. This was published in a German magazine, but this is a Soviet photo. This is from their Phobos 2 spacecraft. This is a city under the surface of Mars that is the size of Chicago. Chicago is one of our biggest cities. Several million people live in Chicago. This is under the surface. You can see the city blocks. Right down here are portions of the neighborhoods or whatever it is. But it's generating an enormous amount of heat. And they picked this up on the infrared when Phobos was going around the planet and snapping pictures like crazy. And the Soviets were pretty open about releasing some of their photos. Contrary to the United States, where lying has become a fine art. Don't get me started on my politicians here. Phobos 2, a city on Mars, under the surface. You can see the streets, Broadway, First Avenue, whatever, you know. People have said, well, who is there? And I says, for God's sake, it's the Martians who are there. What a silly question to ask. Who's there? Next photograph, please. Now, I love this picture. I'm in love with this lady. Your ancestors and mine called her Gaia. She was feminine. She was a goddess. She was sacred. This beautiful lady has a respiratory system, she has a circulatory system, and she has a heart. And she's our source of life on this planet. We needed her. We need her now. We wouldn't be here if it were not for her. You talk about holy lands, Mecca, Jerusalem, here, there, everywhere. That is the Holy Land, people. That beloved planet that we are home. Next picture, please. I spoke to you earlier about the fact that your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren and so on, and the generations yet to come have a destiny in the stars. And in time, they will go out there and claim their rightful place in that infinite community of life. And you can believe that, and you can accept that with an assurance and a truth that goes beyond doubt. The destiny of this species and this race, this troublesome clan of monkeys, is in the stars. And there is your destiny. And I want you to understand that and have some hope. And don't get depressed, because you're going to be undergoing some very difficult times in the few years yet ahead. We're going through this transition, this transformation, this transcendent transformation.